Google just announced the Pixel 4, and I can't help but think two things. One, we have reached peak smartphone 2019. And second, Google has decided that to push the envelope in what they see as the future of smartphone technology, they have to abandon the Indian market. I'm going to be releasing this both on my channel and in the podcast form. And this week has kind of been dedicated to getting the podcast back up and running for you guys. Links to all that stuff down below. But first, let's address the peak smartphone 2019. We're coming into the fourth quarter of 2019. We're about to kind of turn the page, at least for the Snapdragon series of processors, as Snapdragon and Qualcomm always releases the new generation towards the end of Q4 and beginning of Q1 of the following year. Without having any kinds of huge updates to computing power or towards computing ability, smartphone manufacturers are having to rely on other features or other things to go ahead and make their cell phones a compelling purchase. And this is abundantly clear with the launch of the Google Pixel 4. Google decided to kind of buck the trend that we saw this year of giving us triple cameras. They gave us two. They decided to adopt one trend that we have of having a high refresh screen on the device, but that's really because Google is going to be the only company selling a device with a higher refresh screen in the majority of physical retail outlets in North America. I understand that other companies sell high refresh screen phones, but the majority of phones that are readily available to consumers in North America are not high refresh rate devices. So Google is going to be using that as a very distinct selling point. The next area that has me thinking that we've reached peak smartphone in 2019 is that design of the device. Google could have given us an edge-to-edge display, and they could have given us a complete, kind of a complete package in regards to no notch or a minimal notch and shrinking the bezels. Instead, they went completely against that and decided to give us a myriad of other features that would make it stand out from the rest of the crowd, with their radar and their infrared camera. Unfortunately, to most people going into a store, trying to sell a consumer that the device features are better than the better design is going to be something that is reliant mostly on the sales force in physical retail locations, because you can't experience the Google gestures that are available on the Pixel 4 with the radar. It's going to be relying a lot on the sales force to show people how those features work, how they operate, and how to interact with them. And I'm not sure how effective that's going to be with mostly minimum wage employees or low wage employees at a store, for them to give customers that hands-on. Aesthetically, the design of the Pixel doesn't look that new or that different than a Pixel 2 or previous devices we have. And the design without those features looks just kind of uninspiring. And Google is putting a lot of emphasis and they're putting a lot of weight in those features because visually the phone is not that appealing. The design is not something that Google is emphasizing as a way to sell the device. In fact, I honestly think that at a physical retail location, if I had my Redmi K20 Pro on display next to a Google Pixel, and you ask the majority of people walking into the store which device looked more premium or which device was more attractive, they would probably honestly pick the Redmi K20 Pro until you have an employee intervene and show them the air gesture features. Google kind of abandoning India because the device has that radar feature, and because of the current laws in place in India, Google has decided to abandon a market of essentially 1 billion people. And I see this in two ways. In the first way, it's almost like Google is surrendering to OnePlus, because at least in India, OnePlus is a growing brand. It's kind of symbolic with a fast, fluid stock Android experience at a reasonable price point. And at least to consumers in India, they would be shopping the Google Pixel 4 head to head with the OnePlus series of phones. As it currently sits, the Pixel is still an enthusiast product. It's still a product that tech geeks, that tech nerds are looking to get. Same way OnePlus is. And so for the majority of consumers, OnePlus is doing a better job at offering people the stock Android experience than Google is, right? They're giving people more cameras. They're giving people a high refresh rate screen first. In the current series of OnePlus devices, they have bigger batteries. And all of this at a lower price point without gambling on a set of potential features that some users may or may not use. And for the Indian market, it seems like OnePlus is giving Indian consumers a better Google Pixel than Google is giving Indian consumers. A lot of the features that were shown off with the launch are predicated on the English language and using the voice to text and voice to communicate. And living in Vietnam, I firsthand see how people with accents or non-native English speakers have difficulty interfacing with Google Assistant. So things like the voice memo app that live transcribe isn't going to necessarily work as effectively in India as it would be for native English speakers or people that speak English without an accent. I understand that India is a large population of native English speakers, but the English spoken in India is very different from the North American English and even UK English that we see used in demonstration. So trying to sell Indian consumers on a live transcribing feature that might not work so effectively with the Indian dialect of English is a really hard sell. And it brings back consumers' attention to the set of core features and functionality that OnePlus is doing as well, if not better, than Google. And at this point in time, it is mind-blowing to think that you can buy a OnePlus device with double the RAM that you can a Google Pixel. The Google Pixel right now maxes out at 6 gigs. There's OnePlus devices that are available with 12 gigabytes of RAM. And like it or not, as applications become larger, more RAM is going to be needed in the future. My K20 Pro only has 6 gigabytes of RAM. Right now, multitasking isn't an issue, and holding apps open in the background isn't an issue. But in 6 to 8 months, that might change as applications grow in size and in capability. So it seems like at this point, Google is less worried about the Indian market as it is about other markets. The fact that the Pixel 3a is sold at basically the same price as the Redmi K20 Pro in India makes the Pixel 3a a hard buy, and giving us a more premium device when competition like Realme is launching the Realme X2 Pro with the 90 hertz refresh screen, the Snapdragon 855 plus a larger battery and faster charging. It's just that India is a more competitive market, and a lot of these other AI or smart features that Google is giving us are going to be harder for them to optimize for the Indian market. And on top of that, it seems like OnePlus is doing a better job giving users a Google Pixel experience than Google is. One thing I've noticed that has been really interesting, and this is a little bit of a tangent, is that over the last like 3 to 4 months, Google has been really stepping up their advertising here in Vietnam. It's something that is way more prevalent, at least online to consumers. I have a lot more Google ads for Google Home and Google products here in Vietnam. And I'm not sure if that's because they're manufacturing the Google Pixel in Vietnam. I know firsthand the city that Google is manufacturing the Pixel here in Vietnam. I know people that work for Samsung screen manufacturing here in Vietnam that are making the OLED screens for the majority of cell phones right now. And at least here in Vietnam, a device made domestically is subject to significantly lower taxes and tariffs than devices made outside of Vietnam. So I'm wondering if we're going to see Google aim more at trying to take over the Vietnamese market, or if it's something that Google is going to try to leverage the fact that they can manufacture the devices here and they'll be sold for cheaper. At this point, there's a lot that's left to be seen, but I want to know what you guys think. Have we reached peak smartphone for 2019? Do we see Google trying to kind of out peak smartphone 2019? Do you think that Google is going to begin to kind of abandon the Indian market with this Google Pixel 4? And on top of that, do you think that Google is going to start to try to penetrate more developing markets than just India? Let me know what you guys think. If you guys want to go ahead and check out the podcast, it's on Google Podcasts, it's on Pocket Casts, and I'll work on getting this up on Spotify as well. Okay, let's have a conversation on Twitter and in the comment section, and let me know what you guys think. Till then, it's been Mitchell. Peace.